up, everybody? Welcome in to Hoops 360. If you've been watching us every single week, breaking down all of our thoughts on the WNBA, welcome back, and we're happy to have you. If you're joining us for the first time, we are officially rebranding the show. We are Hoops 360. We will be here every single week, breaking down the latest and the biggest storylines in the WNBA and college basketball and unrivaled everything across the women's hoops world. I am Caroline Fenton. She is Cassandra Negley, and Ice Young joins us as well. We are so excited to be here and so excited to finally share the branding and the names and all of the exciting ideas that we have put into motion over the last several months. So thank you for being here. We are happy to be here. And today we are going to talk Caitlin Clark, how her absence will affect not just the Fever, but the entire league potentially in the playoffs. We'll also touch on Angel Reese's comments on the Chicago Sky, what her future might look like in Chicago, and our final picks for the 2025 WNBA Awards. All of that coming up on the show. But before we tip off the first quarter of the program, we start how we always do with the Fast Five storylines that you may have missed this past week in the WNBA. Starting off with Caitlin Clark, the face of the league. She is out for the remainder of the season, and of course, including the playoffs as well. And despite her absence, plus a plethora of injuries throughout the team, Erin McDonald, Sydney Colson, Sophie Cunningham, all out for the rest of the season as well, the Indiana Fever have still managed to clinch a playoff spot. They had a roller coaster of a season, going back to an off season where they really pushed all of their chips in the middle to potentially capitalize on a championship window, and then getting bitten by the injury bug that they pulled it off. They made the playoffs. Congratulations to the Fever as they head into the postseason. And at this point, hey, everything, they're just playing with house money. Number two, the Golden State Valkyries have become the first ever WNBA expansion team to clinch a playoff spot in their inaugural season. With Natalie Nakase at the helm, the team proved to be the most successful expansion franchise team that we have yet to see in the WNBA. So everybody in Portland, Toronto, Philly, Cleveland, Detroit, take notes. They're doing things right over there in Golden State. Number three, Angel Reese made some intense comments towards her teammates and coaches in the Chicago Sky. These comments led to the team suspending her for the first half of their game against the Las Vegas Aces on Sunday. Fair or foul, we'll discuss later on in the show. Moving on to number four, the Las Vegas Aces. They literally cannot lose. They can't. They cannot lose. They continue to have a surge of a lifetime as they pulled off their 14th straight win behind A'ja Wilson's 31-point performance against the Chicago Sky on Sunday. That is the longest win streak in the Aces' overall franchise history. They beat the number one Minnesota Lynx this past Thursday, which was another massive confidence boost for this team. So can they keep up this momentum heading into the playoffs? We shall see, and we shall discuss later on. Number five, four-time WNBA champion Sue Bird, four-time WNBA champion Maya Moore, and two-time WNBA champion Sylvia Fowles, and what company to be in, were enshrined into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame this past Saturday. This was potentially the most dominant trio to enter the Hall of Fame ever, and together they have 11 gold medals and 10 WNBA championships. Huge shout out to these legends, these GOATs, and those who have paved the way for the W and women's basketball as a whole to be where they are today. So congratulations to them. That was this week's Fast Five, everything that you may have missed this past week in the WNBA. So let's get into game time as we welcome in our girl, Ice Young. Ice, it is so lovely to see your face again. It is so wonderful to have you back on the show. And Cass, it's always lovely to see your face every single week, as always, of course. Let's start with our first quarter. Some of the biggest news that came out of the W this past week. Caitlin Clark will be out for the remainder of the season, and of course will be out for the playoffs as well. And she's been out for 2 months at this point. She only played in 13 games this season. She was dealing with the bone bruise and the groin injury. Just initial thoughts, Ice, I'll start with you, just for on the Fever perspective of things, not having Caitlin Clark, at least definitively, as we know for certain, and how different maybe this team have looked without her on the court.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's no surprise that she wasn't coming back this season. I've called several of the Fever games early in the season, and in talking to Lisa Leslie, who's had a groin injury, and getting her feedback on just how tough that injury is to recover from. I didn't have any thoughts actually that she would come back this season, and I don't think she should. Like, I think they made the right call to make sure that she comes back healthy and strong, and that's not something that you want to re-aggravate. So to me, that was the right call. What's been more impressive about the Indiana Fever is, yes, with Caitlin Clark's injury, but like you said earlier, the Sydney Colson, the Sophie Cunningham, all of these major injuries, Ari McDonald, and yet they still make it to the playoffs. It's so funny because without Cece, we know that, that's daunting, right? They're missing so much offense from her and explosiveness, but they still have all-stars in Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell and Natasha Howard that has won championships in this league. So it's not really surprising to me that they were able to get into the top 8 and make the playoffs with the roster that they still have. We talk about coaching jobs in this league. Got to tip your hat to Stephanie White, because through all of that adversity, she has managed to help this team weather the storm. And they still look like a strong and competitive team right now. So to me, I think that if you're the Fever going into the playoffs, your mindset doesn't change. You've been playing with Caitlin without her for 2 months. It's the same process. You're going up with the same team that you have been able to win games with for the last month or so. And I think that their style of basketball has also looked good. Even in games in which they've lost, I have felt like the Indiana Fever have still put together a good grade of basketball that we would like to watch, and that they can win games with. So to me, they're not a team to count out in playoffs. I actually think they're one of the more dangerous teams, because you go in there thinking they don't have enough. You go in there thinking they don't have CC, and yet they have other players that they have picked up that have won. I'll say too, I was really impressed with just who they picked up, like Ariel Powers, Shea Petty. I mean, these are some names that we hadn't heard all season, some players that have been in the W that haven't been. And so to get pieces that fit at this time in the season was also important. So again, I'm actually more impressed with Stephanie White and what she was able to do with the adversity that they went through, Cass.
They're an insanely resilient group. Like,
Yeah.
every time you watch a game, the way they fight through, the way there was a game the other day, they were huddling after the game, and Sydney Colson was on her crutches kind of to the side. They moved the huddle to be next to her. When you talk about Steph White, that's the important stuff, especially when you come into playoffs. I agree with you. I would not be surprised if they stole a game, because the huge thing about these playoffs is it's a 1-1-1, and they're going to get to host. And that place is going to be rocking, as it has been, even without Caitlin Clark playing. It truly, this season, I think, is going to be lost to history in a way that seasons often are. Oh, they only got a 7 seed or whatever they end up being. But this is truly one of the most impressive seasons the Fever have had, simply because fighting through adversity is 75% of the battle.
Yeah. And this is a franchise that, in the past few 4, 5, 6 years, we weren't expecting to get to the playoffs. Only until they got Caitlin Clark. Even when Aaliyah Boston was on that squad, we were not expecting them to have enough to make it to the playoffs. So to me, I feel like, yeah, if you're Fever Nation, you should not overlook this season. You should be more impressed, like you said, with what they've continued to do. We weren't always talking about the Fever just getting to the playoffs and that being a guarantee, since Tamika Catchings retired. So yeah, I think it's been a huge season for them.
And at this point, you're in the dance and anything can happen. And I kind of feel like the Fever right now are playing with house money, because let's just say, the early exit for the Fever in the playoffs, they can say, okay, fine, we made it. Caitlin Clark was out. They had so many injuries throughout the season and season-ending injuries, and they still made the playoffs. I know that this franchise had their sights set on a championship this year, but things happen, injuries happen, and that's going to derail you from your expectations. But belief is a hell of a drug. Momentum can be a hell of a drug, especially in the postseason. So if the Fever steal a game, who's to say that the Fever can't continue to buy into that? And I think that's exactly why I think that Stephanie White should be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. And of course, we'll get into our WNBA award picks later on in the show. But of course, Natalie Nakase is at the top of the conversation, right? The Valkyries in the playoffs, first time ever in an inaugural season that an expansion team finds themselves in the playoffs. She very much so deserves to be in that conversation. But I don't want to overlook the job that Steph Stephanie White has done, maintaining belief, continuing to find ways to win. I mean, they won the Commissioner's Cup without Caitlin Clark in Minnesota against the number one team in the WNBA. Like, that is something that is not lost on me. And I think that is something that should give Fever fans so much optimism moving forward, that if you buy into this group with so many injuries, next season, ideally, knock on wood, they're all healthy, that belief, that buy-in just continues to be kind of an intoxicating factor for this team, Cass.
Yeah, and when you talk about the job that Stephanie White has done, this is not just next woman up, right? This isn't the NFL or the NBA where you have long benches and people are ready to go. They've been in your system since training camp. Like, to the point Ice made, like, Steph White has had to bring in these players, introduce them to the system. The playbook gets a little shorter. Like, it puts a whole bunch of weight on everyone else. And I think also, like, Ice, you've probably experienced this being on the court. Like, they've had to continuously it's not just adjusting to new lineups, right? It's seeing yet another player go down with a season-ending injury that in a lot of these cases, immediately she's probably done for the year. And there is an emotional toll in that, especially when you've gone through it so many times.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what Kelsey Mitchell told me talking to them. It was the game, guys. I had their game, the game after Sydney Colson and Aerie McDonald were ruled out. It was in Chicago. I believe it was home in Indiana, but I had that game right after. And she just said, I asked Kelsey Mitchell because she's obviously been a part of the Fever in those down years in which they weren't winning anything. And she has stayed and weathered the storm. And I said, hey, like, is this the toughest thing you went through here in this franchise? And she said, it's an emotional tug for sure. She said, but it's not the toughest thing. Our group is resilient. We only know how to be resilient here. And so that's what we are continuing to strive to do. So, yeah, I mean, my hat's off to them. They're dangerous. Their games have still been interesting. Again, the level of basketball has still been very good. You make the playoffs, like you said, Caroline, like, hey, it's anybody's game. And you've only got to win one really to shock the world, right? You take care of the one at home and then you win the other one. That's all you have to do to shock the world. So not a tall feat for someone like Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Natasha Howard. I actually believe with those three on the court for the predominant of the game in playoff time, that gives them a chance to win. Those three right there with the experience and the veteran leadership.
And that alone is kind of why I almost feel like the vibes are almost good in Indiana, right? Like, you go through all of those injuries, you feel like that's just going to knock you down. You feel like, okay, our, initial goal is so far out of sight at this point, but also it's like, who knows what can happen? Get in the playoffs, who knows? So, of course, no Caitlin Clark, no Sophie Cunningham, no Aerie McDonald, no Sydney Colson, but there will be the Fever in the playoffs. But I do want to discuss kind of the other side of this, and that is, look, it is no, mystery, and it is, well known to all of us that Caitlin Clark has attracted so much attention to the league. Attendance, eyes, ratings in the television, money that's being invested into this sport, whether that's ticket sales or whether that's merchandise sales. She just came out with her own line at Nike. No Caitlin Clark in the postseason. Now, this year, the WNBA has broken its single season attendance record, and that is massive for the league. But this postseason will be missing the league's number one star. Cass, what do you think the impact will be on maybe just the general interest and ratings and attendance in the postseason, since Caitlin Clark won't be part of it?
Well, it's an absolute damper. I think the best example is, I've said a lot, like, my parents are not basketball fans, but they follow Caitlin Clark. They find her game interesting. And I was at my nephew's birthday party when she announced she wasn't playing. And you could just see my mom was like, oh. Like, I don't think those really, really casual viewers are going to watch. So I think viewership will be lower than it would have been had she played. But I do think it's really important to note here that the WNBA was on an upward trajectory in terms of viewership, in terms of attendance out of the COVID years for a while now. There is still a very good chance viewership is high. Like, I think there's going to be a very chaotic postseason, which will lead into that. But certainly, like, not having your superstar player who brings in those fringe fans who maybe aren't super big sports fans, aren't super big Fever fans, aren't super big basketball fans to watch these games is going to impact those numbers. As for attendance, I don't think it will really impact attendance. Like, having covered the playoffs for the past 3 or 4 years, most of these arenas are like pretty close to sold out, if not fully sold out for these series.
I kind of feel like it might be like an all-star situation. But last year, when Caitlin Clark did play in the all-star game, it was the most viewed all-star game in the history of the WNBA. This year, it was the second most viewed all-star game in the history of the WNBA, but a big step back from last year. So I feel like the playoffs might be similar, that it'll be, at the top of, historical viewership in the league, but probably just less than what it would be had Caitlin Clark been playing in the playoffs. Same thing with ticket prices and attendance. Like, I still think that these places and these arenas will be sold out. I still think they're going to be rocking. I still think they're going to be loud. But maybe that average casual fan wouldn't buy a ticket if Caitlin Clark isn't playing, and would have had she had been playing. Like, would have been more interested in going to see her. So I do think there's going to be a slight step back. But when you, like, to your point, Cass, the overall historical, context of all of this, it will still be near the top, Ice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll play devil's advocate. If you were tuning in last year for Caitlin Clark in the playoffs, you only saw 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
If you was going to tune in this year, what did we just talk about? They'd have to steal 1 game in order to get to the next round. You may only see 2 games. So to me, like, I think the numbers, that makes it skewed alone, right? Like, it's 2 games that you would be tuning in just to watch her versus the other games. But actually, to me, at this point, I am really proud of the W in the way that they have raised and the awareness and the notoriety of other players in the league. I think we'll see a record playoff season. I think there are too many storylines in which, even if you're just a casual fan and you tuned in originally for Caitlin Clark, you're staying for these other storylines. You're staying for the Valkyries. You're staying for Asia Wilson. You're staying for the Aces run. You're staying for Atlanta winning a franchise record number of wins. Like, to me, at this point in the season, you win a whole season where Caitlin Clark hasn't played more than 15 games maybe? And we're still reaching viewership numbers, right? We're still obviously hitting attendance numbers. So also, I just feel like with the amount of games that she possibly played last year in playoffs, again, only 2 and the people tuning in, I don't think that we'll see a difference. I think we'll still see record numbers because I just think the league is growing and there's more players now than ever that we are aware of and that we follow.
And I think that gives me so much optimism for the future too, because so many of those players that we are more aware of, or, young rising stars in this league, won't be represented in the playoffs, but probably will be in the near future. I think about Paige Beckers. Like, the Dallas Wings won't be in the playoffs, but think about next year, in a couple of years, if it's Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers going head to head in the first round of the playoffs. Like, that gives me so much excitement, because those kinds of players, those names, the recognition from the college years all the way up to the WNBA, like, that is the door that opens so many new fans to this league and introduces them to maybe some storylines or some players that, they don't previously know, at least from the college level. So much growth yet to be achieved, but also so much growth that the WNBA has already undergone over the past couple of years. But I do want to move on to our second quarter, probably the second biggest storyline in the W. Another, member of that draft class, in that 2024 class. Angel Reese made some comments to the media that spread like wildfire. So we're going to play a game of fair or foul. Was what she said fair, or was what she said, foul, completely out of bounds here? Now, there's several little pieces of what Angel Reese had to say, several chapters, I think, to this story that we can break it up into. First and foremost, she, had some things to say about her team, the coaching staff, after being eliminated from playoff contention last week. And then she kind of wanted to retract some of those statements. She said that some of them were taken out of context. The initial statements from Angel that we saw, in that press conference, where she's basically, saying that the team needs to get better around her, that the coaching staff needs to be better, the coaching staff needs to push them more, the team needs to be better. Initial comments from Angel. Cass, I'll start with you. Fair or foul?
This is not like a straight answer. I think there's 2 kind of aspects of this. Do I think what she said in terms of the front office and finding ways to bring free agents in and bringing in good free agents and splashy ones like all of these other teams have done, do I think that it is valid? Fair. Yes, absolutely. But this interview, which was done with the Chicago Tribune with 2 weeks left in the season, did feel like a lesson in, fine that you said it, very wrong time to do it if you're going to talk about your teammates in that way. I know sports is a different beast, but these are your coworkers and you have to work with them for a little bit longer. And so kind of driving home this thing of like, we need to improve at every position. Like me and Camila Cardoso are the only ones coming back. If you just think about it in terms of like, if you go on social media and say that about your teammates at work, like, I don't think they're going to be super happy about it. And now you've created this very like awkward situation in your workplace. So I think it was foul to have that conversation now. It's an exit interview conversation is what it is when your season is done and your roster is fluctuating.
Okay. Cass hit on timing. I agree. I agree with timing that some of these comments shouldn't have been made, right? We can't rely on Courtney Vandersloot to come back at the age she's at. I know she'll be a great asset for us. Like, that's timing. That is timing. 100%. Say that later if that's actually how you feel and how you believe. I agree, exit meeting. Here's what I will say, though. As a hooper, as a player that has played to win games, telling a Chicago Tribune, the local media, that I'm not settling for the same shit we did this year, that we have to get good players, we have to get great players, that's a non-negotiable for me. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If my team, and I've never been on a team that has been 10 and 30, I've never been on a team that's been below 500. But that's just me. Maybe I'm right. I'll keep
Let him know. Let us
know. But I would be pissed. I would be pissed if I got on the court and my team is 10 and 30. And you're looking at me and I can't say we're supposed to be better. What else would I want? What are we here for? If we're not here to get good or great players and for things to be different next year. It's interesting because in reading this, she said that's a non-negotiable for me. I'm willing and I want to be playing for the best. And however, I can't help to get the best out there. That's what I'm going to do this offseason. I also thought there were some comments that she made that let us know that she is willing to work with the franchise for it to be better in the future. Like, it didn't scream to me, I'm leaving Chicago, forget this. It screamed to me, I actually want to be here and I want us to be better. And this is what needs to happen. And then, yes, her timing with her comments wasn't great. I think too, and I'll say this as an analyst. As an analyst, if I had said, hey guys, Chicago can't rely on Courtney Vandersloot next year at the age she's at, coming back from an ACL tear, to be their main point guard to get them to a championship, nobody would tell me I'm wrong.
That's fair.
You would be like, Ice, you know what? You're an analyst. How many 37-year-old point guards are going to be out there coming off an ACL tear that can lead their team to championships? How many times have we seen that? You wouldn't say I'm wrong. We think she's wrong because obviously it's her teammate, right? And the timing of which she said it. And 100%, you got to go back and practice the next day and people need to look at you and you should feel like it's a comfortable space. And instead, they feel like you don't care about any of them. So I understand that. But in what she said is not wrong. It is harsh for sure. It's not something that you want a teammate to say in real time. But again, from my analyst perspective, that is a fair statement to make. Obviously, I'm not on the team, so I don't have to deal with teammates. And I think, too, this is also where the growth happens for young athletes, right? To understand, hey, this is Angel Reese. This is Angel Reese who was pointing like this, winning national championships 2 years ago. Angel's not used to being 10 and 30. We got to give our young players a little bit of grace in that you are going through, probably for the first time ever in your career, losing game after game after game after game in terrible ways. If you watch Chicago, you know it has not been pretty. So I also feel like I want to give her a little bit of grace in that you're young, you made a mistake. You spoke a little too freely at the right time. I think what Cass said is perfect. I think the timing of these comments aren't okay. But to me, these comments come from a player that cares about where they are, that wants to win and voice that. I also will say, what does it say about the Chicago franchise that you suspend a player for half a game for making honest comments about their team? Because if I'm a player in the W right now, Caroline, I don't want to go to Chicago. I can't say anything. There's no freedom there.
if it wasn't Angel Reese that said that, let's just say it's, your average player that doesn't get nearly as much media attention as Angel Reese, if those comments weren't the number one topic of conversation on every sports show in America, would that player have gotten suspended? Like, I understand not everything has to be black and white. Not everything has to set precedent, but it doesn't necessarily sit right with me that, like, if it was anybody else that said that, if it wasn't as viral of a moment as it was, would that still be considered comments detrimental to the team or whatever they classify?
Like, if it was a vet, 100%. I think that's a fair statement to make. If it was a veteran that has been in the league for 10 plus years, made those comments, we probably would have looked at it differently. Like, they're taking accountability, they're taking ownership. But because Angel's been here for 2 hot seconds, we're now like, hey, 2-time All-Star. You can't make those comments like that. You can't talk about your team like that. But to me, I think Chicago was wrong in her suspension. Were the comments okay? No. But you're also a professional athlete. Like, you have to be able to address and say, hey, we need to be better. We need better things done. Again, your team is 10-30. You can't get on. We're going to get in the interview and say, I'm happy with the players we have, and we just need to run our plays better. That's not the answer. So I also am just curious what Chicago is trying to get across. I don't know how you get other players in the future with limiting how other people can talk currently.
I have a point to be made about this, but I need to go all the way back, Ice. Even in middle school, you were not under 500?
Yo, Cass, we hope out here. I promise you.
You were never under 500.
I promise you. Maybe in T-ball, the sport I really didn't care about and I wasn't good in. But I swear, basketball seasons, I won championships in high school. Like, AAU, we were good. Like, I haven't experienced being below 500. Maybe my own personal games, but I haven't experienced being below 500.
I was like, do not send me to Chicago. I'm good on that. I'm good. Don't call me, Angel, because I'm not coming.
What? Suspended half a game, bro. I'd be banned.
You'd sit out her rookie contract, sign somewhere else.
All of Ice's mics are just unplugged. She does not get post-game availability. She lost those privileges.
She needs media training.
I do want to make the point about all of this. I think part of it is that Angel is a young player, second-year player versus veteran. But also what stood out to me the most in reading the article as soon as it came out, we do not see this in the W. Like, the W is very much, we are a collective. They are super protective of their locker room and of chemistry and of what is said between them. They have gotten very good at, media speak, if you will, in answering a question without really answering a question. And so for Angel to kind of step out of that circle, I think is very much just an absurd rarity in the W that doesn't necessarily apply to other leagues where players are often more, I don't even want to just say outspoken, but they are not, the W is 144. The NFL is not, the 700.
Yep.
They are individuals. Yeah. And it was just very rare to see.
Yeah, I think, if Luka Doncic said this about Kyrie Irving, hey, we're just waiting for him to come back from ACL, but we can't rely on him, blah, 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 blah. He's not getting fined. He's not getting suspended half a game. That looked like high school to me. I was like, the last time somebody was suspended half a game? High school. You
want to tell that story, Ice, or no? On your over 500 team?
Cass is never going to let me forget that.
I do think, though, like, I love that we are now getting this, and I love that Angel and other players, it does feel more empowered to speak their minds, whether it's about this situation with Angel or, demanding more in the CBA. Like, there is more empowerment in this league than there ever has been, and that's good because that comes with growth. I also think that there are certain lines that might be really, really thin, but when you cross it one way or another, it can come out, it's a massive difference. Like, I think that Angel coming out and saying, I can't stand for this shit anymore, good. You shouldn't. There's not a single competitor in professional sports that should be okay with losing the way that Chicago has lost. Like, I don't have any problem with Angel Reese calling out her team. I don't have any problem with a football player, a men's basketball player, a hockey player, whoever. Insert sport here. I don't have any problem with a star or not, any player whatsoever being angry with losing. I do feel though, because I agree with the time, like you cannot say these comments in the middle of the season. Like you can't, like it's so awkward, it's so uncomfortable. I also think that calling out for better players, that's a behind the scenes conversation. If Angel Reese wanted to say, we need to be better, I don't think there would have been any problem with that. But for her saying we need to get better players, that feels like she's pointing fingers. That feels like there's now, potentially a divide in the locker room. And Angel Reese is a star. She's a celebrity. Whatever she says, whether she likes it or not, whether we like it or not, like it becomes headlines. She has to understand that just a slight change in words or verbiage can make a massive difference. So I think that if she was just a little bit more careful with what she said, we need to be better versus we need to get better players, different messaging all the way around.
Yeah, just take put yourself in that, a little accountability. Yeah. Even if she started with, I need to be better, but we also need better players. Hey, because what professional athlete wouldn't say that, about their team? And I think in knowing Angel and knowing how much she's grown her game this year and trying to get better, I think that it came from that place of I am going to get better, but I also want better around me. But you're right. That's exactly what she needed to say for it to sound more as the collective and less of like, I'm good, but they're not. And they need, we need better over there. So I agree with you. I think I'll make great points.
And then hop on the phone. Send out some texts, recruit the players you want. Hey, we got this going on. Like, come play with me. And then when they're all signed, you go out and you say, oh, yeah, I wanted to play with these players and we need to get better at these positions. And like, this is what, we did to improve our team.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I agree. It's no secret that the Chicago franchise hasn't been good the last few years. So I totally believe it's on the players to recruit other players because the franchise in itself just has not been great. And hopefully that will improve. But I'm going to say it. The half game suspension did not help. To me, that was not a positive coming from the franchise. That to me, to other players looks like, I can't speak my mind here.
And then she didn't play in the second half against Vegas either. Back problems. I'll take your word for it.
My back hurts too.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh my gosh.
Must be all those successful championship.
Yeah. All that winning that you've been doing.
Our bad eyes.
Can we move on? What's next?
Okay, we're going to take a quick halftime break, which I think is coming at the most perfect time. The Stud Buds were in Vogue. The W in Vogue. Some off the court action. So we're used to seeing, headshots of the Stud Buds in uniform, action shots on the court. Obviously, WNBA All-Star Weekend in their Twitch streams. But we saw them dressed up, all glammed up, rocking their fresh pink hair in an article with Vogue. Ice, your reaction to the Stud Buds hitting Vogue.
Yes. My reaction was the Drake line. Don't tell me that you model if you ain't been in Vogue. Honestly, I think this is terrific. I think this is terrific for the league for the simple fact that these are brands that 4 or 5 years ago and the rest of the WNBA longevity have not even cared to have an interest in representing players in the league. So it's the name of the brand, right? It's the global recognition. Someone asked me the other day what I thought the W could do next to expand its reach. And it's like the international part of it. Can we have WNBA India, WNBA Africa, this, that, and the third? And can these things actually be built? So to me, I think this is a step in the right direction. Also, as much as fashion is like fun and cute, it is also like the power moves, right? We know that fashion brands and the way the look and the presentability of the league is so important. So I also think that this just keeps the W going up another level that I like to see. I hope that it continues to expand. And I'll say the last thing about this that I like is really cool is it's not the same 2 or 3 faces that we see in the league, right? It's not the same 2 or 3 people that we've known since the UConn days and that have come and are the face of the league or the Caitlin Clarks. Like these are different players that are on a very good team. One of them that doesn't start, but that doesn't make her any less important than anybody on that roster. And so we're also just getting more faces out in the media of more players that are important to our game and important to growing our game. So don't tell me you model if you ain't been in Vogue.
I love everything about this. I really do. And that was one of my points. One of my thoughts was I love Caitlin Clark and I love Paige Beckers and we love Angel Reese. We love them. Their notoriety, their celebrity status does not make them, any less or any more in my eyes, but it is different in fresh faces. And it's different in fresh faces and players that have built this platform for themselves. Like Cass and I were talking about her experience at WNBA All-Star, and she was talking about how it was just such a fun one. And there was just so much vibe and like so many vibes and so much attention. And a big part of that and a big part of the reason why I was from afar, not being at All-Star, so plugged into All-Star was because of all of the content that the Studbirds were creating. Like they were giving us a behind the scenes look at the personalities and what goes on, in the hotel rooms and not on the court. And it was so fun and it was so easy to fall in love with. I think obviously we see the product on the court and we see, social media posts and we can see their interactions with reporters, but to see what they're like, Kathy Engelbert dancing to Knuck If You Buck at one of the All-Star parties, like all of these moments that feel like they're so palatable, maybe for not diehard WNBA fans to get interested in the W. I mean, they're becoming faces of the league. How could they not? So congratulations to the Studbuds, hitting their Vogue debut. All right, let's get into it. Our third quarter, we are just a few days away from the WNBA postseason. So who's hot? Who's not? It feels like, kind of like a middle school poll of who's hot, who's not in school, who has momentum and who doesn't going into the postseason. And if we're going to talk about hot, there is no team that is hotter, maybe no team that we've ever seen this hot, than the Las Vegas Aces. They're on a 14-game winning streak. A'ja Wilson simply cannot quit. I mean, in their most recent game, she put up 24 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. It's like whenever I see an A'ja Wilson point total that starts with a 2, I'm like, quiet game for her, huh? She's just been dropping 30 plus. I mean, she has 10 30 plus point, 10 rebound games so far this season. That's the most in the history of the WNBA. This Aces team is red hot. A'ja Wilson simply cannot quit. This Aces team is the hottest, hands down, of anybody in the WNBA.
And momentum matters when you're heading into the playoffs. I mean, hottest team, you're feeling good about yourself, you're confident, everything's clicking. Cheyenne Parker-Tyus was activated this week, which is an interesting, another little wrinkle to add to their team. But it's exactly what you want. Kudos to them heading into playoffs on a good note.
Yeah, I mean, to win a whole month, to win a whole month, like in this league, to go undefeated in the month of August is a big deal. They won a number of ways. We knew that A'ja Wilson is capable of the numbers that she's putting up and the consistency that she's doing. Or maybe, I don't know. Sometimes we get tired of greatness. And so I think saying we knew she was capable is unfair, right? She's still doing it. It's still great. But at the same time, to me, it was Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray. Whenever those two decide to get on the same page consistently and play basketball, they're depends on it consistently, then this will be one of the best teams in the league. Because you just can't have that much talent and high IQ and pure basketball ability and not be that great. We've talked about Coach of the Year candidates so far. Hey, if you're not talking about Becky Hammon, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. You're wrong. Again, we can't get tired of greatness. This team was at one point 9th in the standings this season. They looked like they were down and out. I mean, it was Aces games that I wasn't watching because I was like, I'm not watching that. They look like they don't want to be here. I'll watch someone else. So to take a team with that high caliber who's won multiple championships in the last 4 years, guys, and they look like that in the bottom of the standings, and then to take them to, they got as high as 2nd in the rankings. Now they're technically 3rd in the standings. I mean, that job was incredible. Because that's coaching. It's not just hey, we got other players and we need to insert pieces. No, we needed to change the attitude and the mindset, the pieces we have and the collective we have to move forward. I think it also let us know how big of a deal Kelsey Plum was. I think it maybe was understated in the beginning of the season when Kelsey Plum left and they got Joel Lloyd that it was going to be one score for another and things were going to work. But you could clearly see throughout the struggles that they went to how important Kelsey Plum was to the dynamic of that team. And it took them games to figure it out. Even Joel Lloyd coming off the bench, which is a scary sight. I would have never thought that was going to possibly happen in this league until she's 45 and still playing. But Becky Hammon has figured it out.
Around the time that the Aces were in 9th, they went to New York. And it was still a rivalry game, tight game, decent one enough to watch by the final score. But at the time, it was very much like, okay, like the Liberty are cementing themselves as finals contenders again, one of the hottest teams in the league. It looked like New York and Minnesota. This was in July. And the Aces were completely out of the playoff picture, had dropped to 9-10, like you said, looked down and out. But again, like momentum matters. And now we're entering the playoffs. The Aces took over a lot of people's votes in power polls, however you feel about that. Like they look like the hottest team.
Yep.
The Liberty are heading into the playoffs as the least hot team in the league. Like they have, of playoff contending teams, the worst record over the last 10 games. And we've talked all the time about injuries and why that is. And I think there's still reason to be optimistic, but you certainly don't want to go into playoffs on a 4-6 record over 10 games.
I mean, they're barely hanging on, it feels like. They are losing steam at the worst possible time. So I think, like, when we talk hot and not, like, the Aces are the poster child for hot. The Liberty are the poster child for not, at least for playoff contending teams, or teams that will be in the playoffs. I mean, they've lost 4 of their last 7. I mean, they could slide into the 5 spot, potentially slide in the 6 spot when they were hanging on to that 2 spot for an overwhelming majority of the season. Ice, how are you diagnosing this team? Obviously, Brianna Stewart was banged up. Sabrina Ionescu was banged up. They were without Jonquel Jones for a considerable period of time. So, like, you can point to injuries and say this is when this team started to slide. They've also, over the last month and some change, had an truly horrific schedule. And I think whenever, the players union goes to start negotiating this next CBA, it's like, just show them the Liberty schedule and be like, this is exactly why we need to change up travel and scheduling. But how would you diagnose this Liberty team from what you've seen?
Yeah. I've had 3 of their games this season, 2 of them in August. And I know from talking to Jonquel Jones and Natasha Cloud that they were exhausted. They were exhausted. 1, because of the injuries. Every front court player for the Liberty has sat games this season. Every single one. Everyone. Isabel Harrison, Jonquel Jones, Niara Sabley, and company. Every single one.
And multiple.
And multiple games. Right, Cass. Right. Haven't just sat 1 game here, 1 game there. It's been a handful of games at a time. And so to me, the New York Liberty, their weakness heading into this season was defense, right? We know that their offense, when it's clicking on all cylinders, is one of the best that we've seen, like, ever in this league. But defensively is where their weakness was. So because their front court players haven't been healthy, they've had to play wings in the post. Leonie Febish has had to play the 4 at some points. Sometimes she's getting posted up by Brianna Jones. That's not fair. In case you don't know, that's not fair. And so to me, it's like they haven't been healthy. Right now, they're going through a stretch where they don't have Sabrina Ionescu, who is their emotional leader. Like, they need Sab in order to win. She has to bring the oomph, the energy, the resiliency. And so I think that as long as they can get healthy, they have a chance to win because all of their pieces need chemistry. It's interesting because during the season, once they had picked up Emma Miesemann, I was like, oh, this thing is getting ready to flip. You know, I'm like, they're easily going to be a top 3 team because of the versatility of Emma Miesemann, who has been a finals MVP in this league in 2019. But now you're like, hey, you've got 2 regular season games left. You still haven't played. You only played 1 game this season with their full roster. And technically it's not really 1 because Emma Miesemann wasn't on the team when they played with their full roster. So I would say that's 0 games with your full roster. And you're going into the playoffs. All that chemistry makes a difference. All this synergy makes a difference. And also just the rhythm of players. Sab has sat out for a few games. Maybe it's because of rest, but also you need to come back and get your rhythm back. There's not time or room for error in the playoffs. Like Cass said, this is a 1-1-1 series, baby. You got to take care of business right away. So I don't know how much belief you can have in them if they don't have all of their pieces. Because to me, it's a team, when they have all of their pieces, they gel. We've seen them without multiple pieces throughout the course of this season, and it just hasn't looked good for stretches consistently. But make no mistake about it. They get all their pieces and they're playing in the playoffs. You better be watching the New York Liberty. I would not be surprised at all if they return to the finals and pull it around, because with Sandy Brondello and the pieces that they have on that roster, they're more than capable of getting back to the finals. It's just whether everyone is healthy and they can gel at the right time.
Underlined all of it. No notes.
Mike,
he loves
dropped.
me, guys. Cass really loves. That's proof, right? Let's clip that. Let's clip that.
You're just happy you're back, Ice. can't even, push back on anything you're saying on a day when we're so happy that you're here. But I do want to get back to, the hot side of things. I think Liberty, not hot. Not hot. But in the hot category, we have Minnesota, obviously the number one team in the league. They have Napheesa Collier, who we will get into the MVP discussion, but Napheesa Collier, who is an MVP contender. You have Caleb McBride, Courtney Williams kind of supplementing her. Then you have Mercury, who just came off of a 6-game win streak. They have Alyssa Thomas, who is playing like one of the most efficient players in the league. The Dream, currently on a 5-game win streak. All of those teams are incredibly hot. All of those teams, I think, are, view themselves in a championship window and feel like they're playing championship level basketball. Cass, I'll ask you, of those 3 teams, you've got Minnesota, you've got Atlanta, you've got Phoenix. Who's the hottest going into this postseason?
Minnesota, Atlanta, and Phoenix. Who's the hottest? I don't know. I mean, I guess I would give it to Minnesota. Like you've led the league. You were without Fee for a little bit. That said, though, like I know this isn't your question, but I really think there could be some chaos this postseason. Like we've talked so much about injuries, how that's impacted the standings just when you're missing someone and maybe struggling. Ice had said it too. Like if the Liberty make the finals, I wouldn't be surprised. But if you go back and look at it, they're a number 5 seed. So in the WNBA, you do look at that and raise your eyebrows and go, "Huh, that's interesting." Yeah, I don't have like big things to add to that.
So I think everyone should keep their eye on the Atlanta Dream.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't know why they have felt like the dark horse in this race, and they shouldn't be because they're second in the standings and did that without their point guard in Jordan Canada, who was out during that time. You get Jordan Canada right back in it. I mean, everybody gets to play their normal positions and rock out. But also the experience on that team. You can't understate having a Brittany Griner on the roster, a Brianna Jones who has played in finals on the roster. Obviously an Allisha Gray who has now really solidified her superstardom in this league. I think it's totally okay to call Allisha Gray a superstar. So to me, all of those things, the experience, the players, but also with this coach that I believe deserves a coach of the year and Carl Smesko, I think they got it. I think Carl might mess around and outcoach some people that we are fans of. The only coach that has beat Minnesota twice this season and has figured it out, I believe that they will be the dark horse, that it'll be some favorites teams that we're looking into, and possibly at the end, we could see the Dream in the finals, and I wouldn't be surprised. I would be the farthest thing from it. But yeah, for some reason, they're like a dark horse in this race that we don't talk about enough or quite often, or they don't look as sexy as everybody else, but they're good. They're as good as everybody else.
Do you agree, Cass?
Yeah. Oh, 100% agree. I went to Atlanta for some stories earlier this year, and like you said, the experience, like Allisha Gray has stepped up her game. She talked about having the ultimate green light under Carl Smesko. Like she said, I think I asked her point blank, like, did you feel like you didn't have it before? And she said, no, I felt like I had a green light the entire time I've been in Atlanta. But with Carl, it's just like he runs, a heavy 3-point system. Like it's automatic. That's huge. I also agree, though, they're like this weird dark horse that no one is talking about. But I think part of that is just them being Atlanta, a massive city, but definitely like a smaller W market in terms of fandom and attendance numbers and arena and whatnot.
It's wild that we consider them a dark horse when they are currently second in the standings. Like they shouldn't be, but they are. Like they're not nearly talked about as much in the same kind of vein as a Vegas or a Minnesota or even a Phoenix. When we talk about hot, obviously the Valkyries, I think, have to fall into that category just based off of preseason expectations. I remember it was not that long ago that the three of us were sitting down talking about how rough of a season it was going to be, how they didn't have that superstar, they didn't have enough talent, how it was just going to be kind of growing pains for Golden State. Bam, now here they are, they find themselves in the postseason. I think they are also a team that's just kind of playing with house money. You're in the dance. You're the first expansion team in your inaugural season to ever do it. Like just being there, I think is a massive accomplishment. And then get in and see how many games you can win. Like surprise some people. Where do the Fever fall into that? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. They've been injury riddled. They're without, they didn't have a single healthy point guard at one point in the season, but they're in, so vibes are good because you're in the postseason, but vibes are bad because you're so injured. Like, where do we kind of categorize the Indiana Fever going into the postseason, Ice?
Vibes are not bad in Indy, Miami. I got to correct you on that one. Vibes are not bad in Indy, Miami. Where are people the most dangerous? When they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. Yeah. You made it to the playoffs. You had an injury-ridden season. You were able to do what you set out to do. You have nothing to lose. To me, I think the vibes are actually very good for the Fever. Like, you got one more regular game left versus the Lynx tonight. Go out there and hoop. Play a good grade of basketball. Make sure that everybody stays healthy so you can get to the playoffs with everyone on the roster currently. But otherwise, you have nothing to lose. To me, that's the most dangerous. Like, when you go into the playoffs and you have pressure, you're the Liberty, you're the defending champs. We're looking for you to come back. You've got all the superstars and you added an international one, Emma Meesman. That's pressure. Yeah. That's pressure to perform. The Fever, like you said, we're playing with house money. And I don't want to disrespect them and say they're playing with house money and they can't win. Because if you think they can't win 2 games, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I would think you would be wrong. I think you would be wrong to count out Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell and Natasha Howard and Steph White. I think you would be wrong. So I think the vibes are very good. If I was on the Fever, I feel like I would feel my most resilience I've ever been. Bro, we just overcame, COVID, economic crisis, pandemic, all of this. All in one season, it feels like we overcame, and we're still here in the playoffs. Talk to me nice.
The vibes are not bad also because these injuries are not new. They're kind of in the back burner now. Caitlin Clark was announced out a week ago, but I don't think people, if you're around Caitlin Clark every day and you know what's going on, you probably knew that was coming, or at least it was realistic. We talk about that as the headline, but this team has been this team for maybe a month now, 3 weeks, which in Indiana Fever terms is a really long time.
That's fair. If all of this happened within the last week, it would be like everybody running around in the buildings on fire. But unfortunately, the Fever had to get really used to playing shorthanded. And unfortunately, the Fever have had to get used to being, incredibly banged up. But at this point, they're used to it going into the postseason. It's nothing new. It is absolutely nothing new. But let's transition into our fourth and final quarter. Our awards picks, starting with what I think is going to be the hardest discussion, the hardest debate, and the hardest decision maybe of this entire WNBA season, and that's MVP. If you would have asked me this, let's say a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, it's well, that's easy. It's Napheesa Collier. Done, signed, sealed, delivered, send it off she's the MVP. A lot has changed since then. If you ask me who's the WNBA MVP, I say yes. I would say at this point, it feels like a 2-horse race between Napheesa Collier and A'ja Wilson. But Allisha Gray can enter the chat. Alyssa Thomas can enter the chat. Cass, I will tee you up. Of those 4 players, is it fair to say it's a 2-horse race and then it's also Allisha Gray and Alyssa Thomas? Is that not fair of me to say?
Everyone get your dukes up. This is feeling very 2023 to me, the closest race that we've ever seen, or second closest, whatever it was. I am going to make a case for Alyssa Thomas in all of this. And that being said, what Fee has done, what A'ja has done, especially given what the Aces have done over the past 14 games, absolutely incredible. I think any of them winning, I have absolutely no problem. Alyssa Thomas is nearing triple-double numbers. We just don't see that, except out of Alyssa Thomas. She's on a brand new team in Phoenix, a brand new team to her, but also for the Mercury. After Diana Taurasi left, they basically built it from the ground up. I'm going to take a second as well. Voters, Ice, you probably got this. You receive kind of gifts, I guess, from the team. Yeah, promoting their players. The Mercury sent out a viewfinder, which if you're a 90s kid, you know what it is. I absolutely love it. Yes. Because it gives all of their stats in it. Yeah. And so you can see the photos of how this team came to be. Back to Alyssa Thomas.
Cass is I can be bought.
No, literally, such a cool gift. I feel like
Such
I
a
have it
cool
on my
gift.
table over here. Such a cool. I was like, oh, this is good. This is
Yeah.
good. Did you get the growing one for Mystics? Sorry, just quickly changing. Did you get that one?
Ruined. No, I didn't get that yet.
Did you get the Mystics one? Oh, the Mystics one is good. If you like to garden, that one is fire. But okay, I'll wait for you to get it.
The Dream have Legos as well. Allisha Gray's a Lego. Oh, did I read you?
Stop.
We're getting ones at different times.
When do I get on the mailing list? I want these gadgets. I want all these little doodads. It's not fair.
Back to the point.
Yeah, sorry, Cass.
Alyssa Thomas impacts the game in so many different ways on both sides of the ball. I think, just to kind of like keep this short, scoring is really, 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 really important. I get it. Rebounding is really, really important. I get it. I'm an assist girly. Alyssa Thomas does all of that. And I think just the style that she plays, it's always going to be really, really hard for her to win MVP. But I think she has a really, really good case.
Yeah, I mean, she's only 15th in scoring in the league. It's not like she's like 30th, and only averaging 10 points. Like, she's top 20 in the league in scoring. And then she's number 1 in assists, and she is 3rd in rebounds. I'm sorry, but like, that's just not bad. But I agree with you though. And it's like, it depends on who you are as a voter, right? Because so many of this like depends on your personal opinion, right? What you like, what you value. If you're looking at total impact across the chart, you could argue that she's got the most impact on her team through numbers, rebounds, defense, also steals. I mean, right? So yeah, Alyssa Thomas doesn't play the sexiest game. And so for those who don't love that type of style, voting wise, you don't get that recognition. But I certainly have said her praises on air, on CBS, that we need to reward those who are getting triple doubles. We haven't seen that in our game consistently. We see players here or there get one off. No, she's got the most ever in a season. Like, come on, she's blowing people out the water this way. So I agree with that. Man, this MVP thing is tough. Like, let me tell you what I really love. I really love that I think A'ja Wilson said to herself, this is just me making up, but this is what I think I love. That A'ja said to herself, okay, this race is getting close. Like, I'm not there where I'm going to win it, but I'm close enough where if we keep winning and I keep dropping 30 points, they will have no choice but to vote for me.
That's kind of how it feels.
Yeah.
It feels like she said at one point, I'm just going to eliminate all hope. And so if you don't choose me, you're going to feel wrong about it because my team is on a 14-game win streak. We have won the entire month of August. We are number 3 in the standings and we're number 9. And I carried us. I mean,
8 of their 14 straight wins, she dropped 30 plus.
Carrie, my back is hurting. Said A'ja Wilson. So it's interesting. I had this conversation too, and again, it just depends on how you're voting and how you perceive things. But I believe that the W needs to create a rule in which you have to play a certain amount of games in order to be considered MVP. Because at a certain point, I had felt like if Fee kept sitting, she should just know, not that she shouldn't be eligible, but just like that's how it should work. Like you have to play a certain number of games for us to consider you the most valuable player. How can you be the most valuable player but you only play half the season, right? So I'm not saying Fee did that at all. I think she's played a number of games to give us and be fair in this race. But I also believe that while she was sitting is where A'ja did the most damage. And so it just looked like the tide was turning. I'm kind of now, and I'm still undecided. We vote Friday at noon. These awards are in, and 11:59. I'll probably make my decision. Like I'm just feeling like, how can you deny A'ja because of what she has showed us this entire season? Her consistency amongst the team, not necessarily being consistent, but then reaching a peak level of being the hottest team in the league. How can you also negate Napheesa Collier? For the numbers that she has and her consistency, right? We're not going to count the injury because you can't control that, but she came back and was just as good, if not better. But the momentum is with A'ja. I'm going to say that. The momentum is with A'ja Wilson right now for this race.
Let's remember, like, humans vote on this. And I think recency bias is just a natural human thing. And it's very much so a what have you done for me lately kind of award. And this is a what have you done for me lately league. And what A'ja Wilson has done lately and recently is drop 30 plus in 8 of their last 14 games. Like, she has been unstoppable. So frankly, if I had a vote, and I don't, but maybe this is a subliminal message that maybe I could someday, I would vote for A'ja Wilson because right now, like, if you take A'ja Wilson away from the Las Vegas Aces, they are a completely different team. Like, they are not in contention for the number 2 overall in the standings in the postseason. That's kind of how I view MVP is you take that player away, it's a wildly different team. Now, the Lynx would be too, but when Fee was out, the Lynx were 5-2. But also, Cass, like, is it fair to hold that against Fee? That her team is just good around her? Like, that's not Napheesa Collier's fault.
No, it's not completely fair. Everything feels like the wrong choice. Everything feels like the wrong choice. Everyone has a great case. Everyone has a bad case. Like, the thing about Fee is best player on the best team. Like, her numbers aren't bad either, right? She's, I think, top 10 in most categories, 10th in rebounding is really her lowest. Like, defensive numbers are solid. Is it fair that Minnesota continued to win without her and that should take her out of the running? Absolutely not. But, I mean, not to be this person, but like, life isn't fair. Awards aren't fair. We all know this. If you've won an award, you haven't won an award, like, there's context to it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Fair is where a pig wins ribbon. Let's move on to Rookie of the Year. I think that we can all agree that Paige Bueckers will be Rookie of the Year. She will more than likely be the 4th consecutive number 1 overall pick to win Rookie of the Year, going back to Ryan Howard, then Aaliyah Boston, and Caitlin Clark, of course, last season. But my question for you, Cass, is will Paige Bueckers be unanimous Rookie of the Year?
I don't think so. Probably because my gut tells me I'm voting for Sonia Citron.
Ooh! Tell us more.
Y'all know I love when Cash takes it up.
Of course you do, because you don't receive the blowback from it.
You're not in her mentions.
It's not me.
It's not you.
This is not your cross to bear.
They've both had incredible seasons. I think we're going to continue to see this. Like, rookies are playing really, really well. Her efficiency numbers are high. Her scoring numbers aren't that far off of Paige. And it's kind of like Icy were saying, every voter, has their own philosophies. My philosophy is not necessarily just how many points can you score, because in Dallas, especially with Arike Ogunbowale being out for a lot, Paige has been the option, the answer, the offensive star. I think Sony has had a really good season. Washington was competing for a playoff spot for a while. She did pretty well early on when they got rid of Brittany Sykes in that trade. My gut is telling me Sony, and I think I might stick with it.
I like it. I was to say, it's not a bad pick at all. What I almost was hoping was that one of their teams would make the playoffs, because then I think that would really have swayed it. I believe that if Washington was making the playoffs, this wouldn't be an easy conversation for us to have, because in order to be Rookie of the Year, like, we care about team success. We care about how your team is operating off of you being the best rookie. And right now, there are 2 rookies in Washington who, for the better half of the season, had their team in the playoffs, right? It's unfortunate. It happens. They traded Brittany Sykes, so they kind of lost a big piece. But I think if Washington had made the playoffs, I'd be right with you, Cass. Like, hey, we got to give it to the rookie who willed their team to the goal, which is to be in the top 8. But because that isn't happening, to me, it's clear for Paige. What I have always liked about Paige is the balance in her game. And so that it's not just scoring. It's the 19 points. It's the 5.3 assists. It's the 3.8 rebounds. It's the 1.6 steals, right? Like, you could say that Arike Ogunbowale isn't out there, but you still got to defend somebody. You still got to go and get the rebounds. You still have to go and make sure that your team is getting better. And we know that in Dallas, she is one of the leaders of that franchise. Only a rookie. So to me, I think Paige has locked this up. I think she had, a great season and battled through some injuries. It'd be interesting to see what Dallas looks like in the future, who they really decide to build around. But yes, I think because all the candidates that I like aren't making the playoffs, it made this decision easier. If one of them had been, I would be up here arguing for someone else too, for sure.
Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. And I almost feel like whoever doesn't win MVP will win Defensive Player of the Year. Like, if it's A'ja MVP, Napheesa Collier will win Defensive Player of the Year, and vice versa. But, like, is that also Gabby Williams' erasure? Is that fair?
Alana Smith erasure.
Yes.
Yo, thank you, Cass. Thank you, Cass. Because why don't we give Alyssa Smith credit? I'm about to lose my mind over here. Nobody
It's not on the same team right now. We're above 500.
Can't stand her.
Never been below it.
So happy to have you back, guys.
Oh man, it was only a short break. Okay, but back to Alyssa Smith. You make that case because I'm behind you 100%.
I mean, solid defender on the best team. Defense is always so hard. I don't have like stats I'm looking at to back this up, but in watching their games, especially when Fee was out, like it was always Alana Smith. And I think Cheryl Reeve has also spoken to this about building game plans around what Alana Smith can do.
Yeah, from shot blocking. So to me, right, when you're watching Smith play, she saves the day a lot for the Minnesota Lynx, whether it's taking charges, being in the right position, getting blocks. And the blocks statistically is what she's known for in this league. Where she's third in the league, by the way, behind Wilson, behind Mag Bagor for Seattle. Where Smith won't win this award is in the other defensive categories. Like her rebounding numbers just aren't quite high enough. Her steals numbers aren't there. And so some of the other candidates that we're going to talk about, like A'ja Wilson, Napheesa Collier, even Gabby Williams, who leads the league in steals, they have some of those other areas on lock, right? They're on multiple lists that we're looking at in terms of categories. But I believe that Alyssa Smith could grow to a defensive player of the year in this league. If she decided to go and get 9 rebounds a game, I'm not sure how you would not give it to her because that is really her specialty, especially on that team. And again, they're the number 1 defensive rated team in the league. And so you have to reward that. But I honestly agree exactly what Caroline said. Whoever doesn't win the MVP is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Honestly, you could have argued last year that Napheesa Collier won Defensive Player of the League and easily could have been MVP. And so that was a conversation we had last year. So you could do the same with it this year. I think both of those could interchange. To me, defensively, let me tell you why I would vote A'ja. Because A'ja is put in more vulnerable positions defensively than anybody else in the league, than anybody else that's going to be up for this award. That is, yes, slighting the aces. Because their guards get beat at a high enough clip to where A'ja has to consistently make a defensive play in the paint. But that's also why she could be the Defensive Player of the Year. Because without her anchoring their defense, they would be nowhere near where they are today. We talk about her scoring her 30 and 10, but the anchoring the defense is also where A'ja is exceptional. The same could be said of Napheesa Collier, but we saw games without Napheesa Collier and Minnesota still maintained their number 1 defensive ranking. So again, it goes back to your point earlier, right? Like, can we knock Napheesa Collier because the rest of your team is just good? The rest of your team continues to compete at a high level. But for me, if this award is won by A'ja, it will be for that reason. Her team puts her in more vulnerable positions than any other big in the league, and she continues to save the day.
And we will see A'ja and that Aces team tonight, Tuesday. They host the Chicago Sky, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Can the Aces make it 15 straight? We shall see. Stay tuned. Also tonight, we've got LA at Phoenix and Golden State at Seattle. 2 games with massive postseason implications. If the Storm win tonight, then they are in the playoffs. But if the Storm do not win tonight and LA wins out, then they make the playoffs. So must-win games for both of these teams tonight. New York will travel to Chicago on Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern time tip. And then we've got Vegas at the Sparks, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'm sure there's no chippiness, no sort of, any type of feeling, any type of way between Kelsey Plum's LA Sparks and the Las Vegas Aces. I'm sure everybody's going to get along just fine there. But those are all the games.
Shout out to who made that schedule. Shout out to who made that schedule. The league, we got to credit the league when they do get it right. That was cute. That's good popcorn right there.
The regular season finale. And then also, let's say Seattle loses tonight and the Sparks have to win out. What if that is the one game that keeps the Sparks out of the playoffs? It is spicy. It is juicy. I love that all these games upcoming have such massive implications. So that's all what we're going to keep our eye on coming up this week. But we will have a special Friday edition of Hoops 360. Normally we come to you once a week, but We've got postseason basketball to talk about. So we'll come at you on Friday with a full playoff preview right here at Yahoo Sports. You can find us on the Yahoo Sports Network, yahoosports.tv. You can find us on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. We will see you on Friday.